All right, so time for some good news. So, France's parliament officially approves a law to enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution. And from what I have read, France is generally pro abortion rights, that they understand that, you know, butting into other people's lives, not the best way. Let them get the health care they need. But thanks to the US, they are worried that if some right-wing wackaloons get power, that they could say goodbye to such rights, because apparently controlling women is, a thing with right-wingers, because, I don't know, they think that if they breed more babies, that somehow that's good for them. I I honestly do not understand why controlling women is such a big thing. And it's usually, and lately, especially in Europe, it's women who are doing this, which is more bizarre. But anyway, let's get to the article. French lawmakers voted officially on Monday in favor of adding a line guaranteeing the freedom to have an abortion to the country's constitution. Now, I don't know why freedom was in quotation marks, whether the person who wrote this article doesn't see it as a freedom, whether it's because they are pro forced birth, or if they just simply think it's healthcare and it shouldn't be a matter of freedom. I'm not sure. But for some reason, they have it in quotes. The symbolic vote needed 3/5 of both houses of parliament to vote in favor to make the change official, with both MPs and senators agreeing on the same legislative text. There are 780 votes in favor and 72 against, easily passing the threshold of 512 votes that are needed. And I'm sure all 72 who voted against are part of Marine Le Pen's party. That would be my guess. The vote was the final step to approve the constitutional change after France's Senate voted last week to approve the government's proposed law, while the National Assembly, the lower house of parliament, voted to approve the change in January. Wait. If both houses of parliament already voted, why do we need this final step? I'm confused. Anyway. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal told the joint session of Parliament on Monday that he would remember the pride of having been present as, together, united, full of emotion, we changed our fundamental right, our fundamental law, to finally include women's freedom, because we owe a moral debt to all these women. Yael, I think is how you pronounce it, my apologies if I butchered, Braun-Pivet, president of the National Assembly, said, "To women in France, we say that we will never roll back this freedom. To women of the world, we say that we will support you and that we will be at your side," she added. The constitutional amendment was prompted by the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in 2022 to overturn Roe v. Wade, a court case that guaranteed access to abortion in America. That is just so sad that they see what's happening in the U.S. and they're like, oh yeah, we better enshrine this into our Constitution, so people who just want to control women and force women to give birth no matter what, well, we certainly wouldn't want them empowered eroding that right. So let's just enshrine it. So I'm guessing that's why they did, because why else would they look at the U.S. and think, oh shit? I mean, wouldn't that make sense? That, otherwise, what would it matter if another country does that? Of course, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to enshrine healthcare into the Constitution because people would mind their damn business. You you think abortion is murder and you don't want to have one? Great, don't have an abortion. Don't tell other people what they can and cannot do with their own bodies because, well, not your body. So, the French legislation states in its introduction that the U.S. court demonstrated that the rights and freedoms that are most precious to us can be threatened even though they seem firmly established. And that is true. People never enshrined abortion into law because we had Roe v. Wade and people thought that that was established law. We would be safe. Even though, the conservatives have been doing a power play of adding more and more conservatives to the Supreme Court so that this could eventually happen. And even though there were people screaming, they were deemed hysterical and ignored. So at least France is, realizing that maybe we should, deal with this. All right. Let's see. Where am I? The legislation goes on to say that this has also happened in Europe, with movements trying to restrict access to abortion. I'm going to guess Catholic countries? That seems to be a fair bet. A 2020 court ruling in Poland, for instance, led to a near total ban on abortion in the country. Yep, called it. Do I know all the Catholic countries? No. But, yeah, that Poland is definitely a Catholic country, so yeah, nailed it. Now, I do know Ireland is not going in this direction, so obviously not all Catholic countries are horrible people, but yeah, they're more likely going to be the ones to do that, except in the U.S., which isn't a mostly Catholic country. That's just a whole nother level of crazy. That's a different brand of Christianity, but just as annoying. And I brand annoying any religion that thinks that they can shove their religion down anybody else's throat. You want to believe this stuff? Go for it. Don't tell me what I can and cannot believe because you do. That's just not the way this works. Marta Lempart, one of the leaders of the Polish women's strike, told Euronews Health that the French vote was crucial because it gives hope that abortion is an issue that can be addressed at the European level. We know it's more a lack of political will than anything else on the EU side, she said, adding that she hopes other member states will follow France. For those who don't know, Poland is a member of the EU. And as an aside, also a member of NATO. So that's why she's talking about the EU level to enshrine abortion access into the EU charter, I suppose, or to, I don't know if the EU has a separate. I know they have a charter. I don't know if they have their own constitution, but maybe that could help abortion rights in other countries. I guess they could help there. I'm assuming. Anyway, I'm rambling. We are organizing at the European level to push the abortion issue forward. And obviously the France example is a very good thing for us, saying there's always something that can be done. There's always something that people can do, she added. Feminist and gender equality organizations have hailed the French effort as a victory, but also warned that activists should remain vigilant. Which makes sense, because yes, this is now in the Constitution, but if you can add an amendment or change the wording of the Constitution in one direction, you can certainly do it the other way as well. We have examples of it here in the U.S. I'm sure there are examples in other countries, so that makes sense. Though, again, this should not be an issue because it's healthcare, and if you don't want to have it done, fine. Just like any other freaking procedure. You don't want to have it done for whatever reason, that's on you. You don't get to tell other people what kind of health care they're allowed to have. I'm not telling men who need Viagra that they can't have it because, it's part of God's plan or whatever the religious say. I don't do that because it's none of my damn business. So, same thing here. It's healthcare. None of my business if you need to use it. And yes, it is a need, not what a lot of the pro-forced birthers claim, which is a form of birth control. It's like, oh, damn, I got pregnant. Now I have to go get an abortion. That's literally not how it works. I'm not going to say that nobody does that. I'm sure there are some people, but let's be real. That's not the majority because this is a major thing. The rise of far-right and anti-abortion discourse, as well as international examples in Poland and the U.S., clearly show that the rights of women and the right to access abortions are backsliding globally. The organization Osez le Feminisme, Dare to be Feminist, wrote in the statement, and I hope I didn't butcher it too badly. The NGO added that they dedicated the victory to feminists across the world who are fighting to end the scandal. Every year around the world, 47,000 women die from unsafe abortions. Irene Donadio from the International Planned Parenthood Foundation European Network told Euronews Health that the move in France was exciting and galvanizing, adding that it's a different universe from the court rulings in the U.S. and Poland. Right, because as of now, the courts in France have not been taken over by ideologues. So that helps. It's incredibly important with such an amazing majority, such enormous support, and in such a democratic way. We really hope it will reverberate, she added. Anne Laure Blin, an MP from the right-wing Republican Party, said she voted against the measure because the right to have an abortion was not threatened in France. Well, as we saw in the U.S., it wasn't threatened for 50 years until it was. So you can't assume that just because it's not threatened now, it never will be. The U.S. is a perfect example of that. I mean, the Republican Party, the right-wingers, chipped away. They pushed for more power, and then suddenly they have the majority in the Supreme Court, and what do you know? One of the first things they do is overturn Roe v. Wade. So, yeah, it can happen. We have imported into the public discourse a debate that isn't ours, one that is American, that indeed resulted in reduced access to abortion in certain states. Blin told French broadcaster France Info. True, but also Poland, And France just realized, oh, yeah, we don't want to have to worry about if a bunch of crazies get any amount of power that they're going to force women to, carry pregnancy they don't want or can't have to term. So, yeah, that is abortion has been authorized in France since 1975 when legislation led by then Health Minister Simone Weil decriminalized the practice in the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. Okay. Wait, only the first 10 weeks? Okay. The time limit has since been extended to 14 weeks. Okay, that's a bit better, but still, that's not making France out to be the vanguard that this article started with. With the cost of the procedure covered by the National Health Insurance System. Well, that certainly helps. Melanie Vogel, a senator who first tried to make abortion a constitutional right in late 2022, said that her colleagues told her then that the Senate would never vote for it. Vogel said on Monday that the historic vote was an important lesson for feminists that if we don't give up, in the end, we win. An IFOP survey from November 2022 found that 86% of French people surveyed were favorable towards adding abortion access to the Constitution. The survey also looked at the situation in the U.S., where some 61% of Americans were against the decision to revoke abortion rights there. Now, that is true. That's why I'm talking about the crazies. Because there are plenty of Republican women in the U.S. who, didn't want to see abortion go away. Because they understand why it's needed. So this isn't just a Democrat versus Republican issue. This is a sane people versus crazy ideologues. Totally different argument. Debate. All right. With the vote on Monday in France, the Constitution will be changed to state the law determines the conditions under which the freedom is guaranteed to a woman to resort to voluntarily terminating a pregnancy. Thank you. Elsewhere in the EU, Slovenia has a provision in its constitution that references the right to decide whether or not to have children, with Article 55 stating, everyone shall be free to decide whether to bear children, with the state guaranteeing opportunities for exercising this freedom. So, that is all I have for this article, and it's good to see that there are countries that are being forward-thinking and realizing, oh, this could happen here. If a crazy person got in power and was able to push through legislation restricting a person's freedom, then maybe we should be forward-thinking and not give that person a path. Because obviously, revoking or passing another revision to the Constitution would be hard. So the crazies would have to completely take over the asylum in order for this to be revoked. So it makes sense. They want to be sure that no matter who ends up being prime minister, women are not going to be in danger of losing a fundamental right. I believe that's all I have. That's the end of the article. So with that, I will see you guys in the next video.